There is a question that quietly follows people through most of their adult lives. Not when they're teenagers, not when they're 22 and convinced they'll figure everything out later, but eventually. Usually sometime between their first real bills and their first real burnout. The question arrives, and once it arrives, it never really leaves. How much money would I need before I no longer had to work for money? Not retire, not become a billionaire, not own a yacht. Just reach the point where the bills could be paid without needing another paycheck. It's one of the most searched financial questions in the world, and yet most people never calculate the answer, because the answer feels intimidating, too large, too distant, too unrealistic. But here's the strange thing. The number is usually both bigger and smaller than people expect. Bigger because financial freedom is expensive. Smaller because most people dramatically overestimate what freedom actually requires. Today, we are going to pull back the curtain. We're going to answer one simple question. How much money do you actually need invested to live off dividends? And by the end of this video, you may realize that financial freedom is less about becoming rich and more about understanding the math. Let's start with the biggest misconception. Most people think dividends are free money. They're not. Dividends are simply a share of profits distributed to shareholders. Imagine owning a small apartment building. The rent comes in every month. Expenses get paid. What's left belongs to the owner. Dividends work similarly. You own a piece of a business. The business earns profits. Part of those profits get distributed to you. That's the dividend. The difference is that instead of collecting rent from 10 apartments, you might be collecting income from thousands of businesses around the world. Now here's where things get interesting. Because once people hear about dividend investing, they often imagine something magical. A beach, a laptop, money arriving while they sleep. And while that image makes great social media content, the reality is much less glamorous. Financial freedom isn't built by dreaming about dividends. It's built by understanding the numbers. Let's imagine your annual expenses are $30,000. Nothing extravagant. Rent, food, transportation, utilities, insurance, basic living expenses. You need $30,000 per year. Now suppose your dividend portfolio yields 3%. That means every $100,000 invested generates approximately $3,000 per year in dividends. Not $30,000. $3,000, which means generating $30,000 annually requires approximately $1 million invested. Suddenly, the conversation feels different. Because $1 million is not a motivational quote. It's math, and math doesn't care about how badly we want financial freedom. Now let's move up. Suppose your lifestyle costs $50,000 annually, a fairly typical middle-class lifestyle in many places. Using that same 3% dividend yield, you'd need roughly $1.7 million invested. Again, not because someone decided that number, because the math demands it. And this is where many people become discouraged. They hear numbers like 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, and immediately conclude that financial freedom is impossible. But they're looking at the wrong side of the equation. Most people obsess over the portfolio. Very few examine the expenses. Because financial freedom has two moving parts: income and spending. Everyone wants to increase the first. Almost nobody wants to reduce the second. Yet, reducing expenses can be just as powerful as increasing returns. Imagine two people. The first person needs $100,000 per year to maintain their lifestyle. The second person needs $40,000. Who reaches financial freedom first? Not the higher earner. The person with lower required expenses. This is one of the hidden truths wealthy people learn early. Freedom is often determined by the gap between what you earn and what you require, not by how impressive your income sounds. Now let's talk about the danger nobody mentions. Dividend yield. Because when people discover dividend investing, they often make the same mistake. They chase the highest yield they can find. A stock yielding 3% feels boring. A stock yielding 12% feels exciting. And that's exactly why it's dangerous. Imagine someone offers you a savings account paying 4 times more than every other bank. Your first reaction shouldn't be excitement. It should be suspicion. The same logic applies to dividends. Very high yields often signal risk. The company may be struggling. The dividend may be unsustainable. The business may be distributing cash it can't afford to distribute. And when the dividend gets cut, the entire strategy collapses. This is why experienced investors often focus on quality first, income second. A reliable 3% dividend that grows every year can be far more valuable than a shaky 10% dividend that disappears during the next downturn. Because financial freedom is not about maximizing income, it's about maximizing certainty. Let's put this into real-world perspective. Imagine 3 people, Sarah, Daniel, and Marcus. Sarah wants $25,000 per year from dividends. Daniel wants $50,000. Marcus wants $100,000. Using a 3% yield, Sarah needs approximately $833,000 invested. Daniel needs approximately $1.67 million invested. Marcus needs approximately $3.33 million invested. Now look carefully. The lifestyle doubles. The required portfolio doubles. This is the hidden relationship most people never notice. Every lifestyle upgrade permanently raises the cost of freedom. The bigger the lifestyle, the larger the portfolio required to support it. A luxury car isn't just the cost of the car. It's the extra capital required to sustain that lifestyle forever. A larger home isn't just a larger mortgage. It's a larger financial freedom target. Everything you add to your lifestyle becomes another weight your portfolio must eventually carry. And that's why financial freedom often feels farther away than people expected. Not because investing doesn't work, because lifestyle expansion keeps moving the finish line. Now here's the part most financial videos skip. The emotional side. Because nobody wakes up one morning with $1 million portfolio, the journey is slow, painfully slow. The first 10,000 feels impossible. The first 100,000 feels insignificant. The first $250,000 feels underwhelming. The first $500,000 still doesn't feel like enough. This is where most people quit. Not because the math stopped working, because the progress feels invisible. They expected fireworks. What they got was compounding, and compounding is boring until it isn't. For years, nothing seems to happen. Then suddenly, everything happens. This is why wealth building feels so unfair. The hardest years produce the smallest visible rewards. The easiest years produce the largest visible rewards. The effort comes first. The results arrive later. And dividends are no different. The first dividend payment won't change your life. Neither will the 10th. But eventually the payments begin covering groceries, then utilities, then insurance, then housing. And one day, if you stay consistent long enough, they cover everything. That's when the game changes. Because the goal was never really the dividends. The goal was independence. The ability to say no. No to a toxic boss. No to a job you hate. No to opportunities that don't align with your values. That's what dividends actually buy. Not luxury. Options. And options are one of the most valuable assets a person can possess. Because once your money begins covering your life, you stop making every decision from a position of financial pressure. You start making decisions from a position of choice. And choice changes everything. So how much do you need invested to live off dividends? The honest answer is frustrating. It depends. It depends on your expenses, your expectations, your location, your lifestyle, your goals. But here's what doesn't depend. The principle. Every dollar invested today is future income. Every asset acquired is future flexibility. Every contribution moves the finish line slightly closer. The mistake most people make is treating financial freedom as a destination, a single day, a single number, a single moment. In reality, it's gradual. First, your investments cover one bill, then another, until eventually they cover your life. And somewhere along that journey, something surprising happens. You realize the goal was never actually to stop working. The goal was to stop needing to work. There's a difference. One is retirement. The other is freedom. And freedom is what most people were looking for all along. The question isn't whether you'll ever reach financial freedom. The question is whether you're building toward it. Because every portfolio started at zero. Every investor started as a beginner. Every dividend payment started as a single share. The math may seem intimidating, but the process is simple. Own assets, stay consistent, reinvest, wait, then let time do what time has always done, multiply patience. Because the person who understands this doesn't just build a portfolio, they build a future where work becomes a choice rather than a requirement. And that changes far more than money. It changes life itself.